you'll find with an open mind, you may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
Dillahunty, Martin Wagner's here with me today. It's January 20th, 2013.
2013?
Is this, I don't think, this isn't my first show of the new year. It might be, though. It might be. I was gone for quite a bit.
Well, mine as well.
I might have done one a couple
we're doing
weeks
our
ago.
first show of the new year together.
They all merged together. And I forgot to ask you if you had anything in particular you wanted to talk about before we jumped straight into calls.
Well, no, I mean, I talked about my thing that we can't talk about on the show, which was the important thing, but I did that. But here's the thing. I got some Girl Scout cookies and have been sharing. Oh, well, no, I've just.
Share them here.
I'm not hawking them, but I brought them to share with our lovely studio audience and crew today because there has been, this Christian anti-Girl Scout pamphlet that's been sort of making the rounds on Facebook. People have been sharing it, and it's really hilarious. It's like the list of all the reasons why the Girl Scouts are awesome are the things that the fundies think are incredibly evil, and. So I just I saw some Girl Scouts out in front of Walgreens today, and I grabbed some cookies, and I've been sharing them with everybody. So yay, Girl Scouts!
Yeah.
So fundamentalists love the Boy Scouts because the Boy Scouts are a nice, big, bigoted organization. They hate gays, they hate atheists, and they hate they hate all the right people you're supposed to hate if you're a good American
Good
Christian.
for them.
But the Girl Scouts, it's all of the horrible, abortionist, lesbian feminazis who are out to program, So I'm just like, boy, you say that like those are bad things. So everyone gets Girl Scout cookies in the studio audience, which is another reason why you should be part of our studio audience.
Yeah, that's something we actually don't talk about that much, is that you actually can, if you're in the Austin area, you can come down and watch it live. And as a reminder, the American Atheist National Convention is going to be here at the end of March.
Yes.
50th anniversary thing that we talked about on the show before. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do, whether there's going to be a regular show during that, or whether we're just going to be too busy with other stuff. But if there's not a show, maybe we can organize a
I wonder what the possibility would be of doing the show from the hotel or from the convention facility.
The thing is, it's a fifth Sunday, so we'd have to special request a studio anyway.
Yeah.
So we're still talking what we're going to actually do. But
But I think that we could do one conceivably, and it would be the ideal opportunity to.
Yeah, and maybe by then we'll have
if it's a fifth Sunday,
building up and running.
If it's a fifth Sunday, it can be like this especially long show where several of the guests from the convention.
Oh, stop! No.
Okay, I'm building up people's hopes.
So no, here's the thing, and I already made this decision, and it's unfortunate, but it had to be made, and that is that if we do a show on March 31st weekend, it'll be pretty much a normal show.
Oh, okay.
Because there are so many people who want it to be Everybody there's not a single atheist that I know of who's not going to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
that
makes sense then.
How do I pick and choose who's going to be on and who's not? So rather than sliding any of them, I'm going to say, screw you guys. We're going to do a normal show.
Oh, okay.
If we can. Anyway, live call-in show. We're going to go ahead and get started with callers with Phillip in Walnut Creek. How are you?
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Phillip.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Sure. Thanks for waiting.
Hi. So what I'm calling about is not particularly pertaining to atheism. Sorry, I'm hearing myself. It's pretty hard to focus. But my parents are theists, or at least my father believes in God. My mom is spiritual. I'm not really sure what she means by that. But they're both pretty strong believers in a lot of conspiracy theories, most of them related to how the U.S. government is trying to control the whole world and trying to keep everyone stupid. And a lot of nonsense about that, about how the U.S. government created the earthquake in Japan and stuff.
Wow.
With some kind of device. I don't really understand it, but I don't really want to. Anyways, I've tried to reason with them about these things for a long time. Never gotten to them at all. They just pull the plastic kind of thing that theists do as well, where they just restate their original position after you've debunked all of their claims. And what I'm stuck on right now is I don't know how to move forward, because I'm at a point in my life where I'm going to be moving out pretty soon and living on my own. or I should have by now, and I'm trying to. And
sounds like a way to move forward to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I just don't know how to continue having a relationship with them because it causes me so much grief.
Well, I mean, okay, first of all, I'd recommend trying to talk about other things. For example, my family is religious, but we just avoid that subject. Unless they're just constantly, if they're constantly coming at you with conspiracy theory stuff, and the best thing you could do is just say, I know you believe these things, I don't. Can we talk about other things? I don't want all of our conversations to be, filled with conflict. But I mean, as I travel around, doing lectures and debates and things, I run into, if you're an atheist, there's no guarantee that you're a skeptic or a reasonable person. And I run into atheists all over the place who are into all sorts of woo and pseudoscience and conspiracy theory stuff. We just got an email in the other day that I won't go into that, is somebody who's convinced they're going to turn science on its head. And some of those conversations I just don't engage in. It's, apart from stating that I don't agree with them and that I don't have any interest in really talking about it, I may not say much at all. But it's deciding how invested you are in any given relationship and how to...
Because it sounds like you still want to have a relationship with your parents.
Well, I do. It's just the problem is that it comes up with pretty much everything. I mean, most of their discussions between each other are pretty much complaints about the world out of pure ignorance, like how you can't work on modern cars the way you used to be able to work on cars in the 30s because they have all these conveniences, and they think that it's because, the car company, as if we're just 5 people in a room deciding this, all decided that they don't want people to be able to work on cars, so we're going to make them really complicated.
Well, I don't know that they're completely wrong about that.
Well, sure, but my point is that they're pretty much, that's their angle on everything, is from them out instead of the world comes into their perception. It's their perception first.
Yeah, and I mean, if they're not willing to accept that, for example, mistakes are more likely than a grand conspiracy. That ignorance and incompetence is a much more likely explanation for some things than an extremely competent conspiracy. I don't know what to say. And it may just be, I mean, you've got to decide at what level you're going to engage, but there are some people who, unfortunately, are probably beyond reach, that they're too invested in what they believe, and their critical thinking skills not only didn't develop properly, but developed improperly, such that all of the things that they think about fall into this kind of, pattern recognition, therefore, truth conspiracy.
Yeah. And tying into that, one of the interesting things that you often hear from conspiracy theorists and people who think along those lines is that they, of course, see themselves as being the great rationalists and skeptics, when in point of fact what they've done is they've become so far gone in their own way of thinking that they see they're confusing skepticism with denialism, for example. This whole idea that, if anything that's the official story about anything now just simply has to be wrong or some sort of nefarious lie simply because it is the official story. It's this kind of hyper-skepticism that skepticism that goes beyond rationalism into this new form of strange dogmatic thinking. It's kind of gone over the top and back all the way down and looped around the other side of irrationality. So it's if they are in fact that far gone, and it's to the point where it's affecting your ability to just have a normal day-to-day relationships, like where you can't talk about anything at all. So, boy, it's a really nice breeze out today. Yes, well, it's because, the government mandated wind machines that are controlling our minds, or if it's that ridiculous, you may just need to move out, break away, let them miss you for a while, and come back to it. As Matt said, some people just, you can't reach them at a certain point.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that's not that way, but...
Yeah, it may be. We don't have a good answer for you. You're going to have to figure out how to interact with your parents.
Yeah, I knew that. I knew that when I called. That you guys can't really give me any definitive answer on something like this.
But you're not alone.
Yeah.
And look for other people who are dealing with similar situations. Is often one of the.
Because a similar
best
question that
ways
we
to
get
sort
just
it
from a lot of atheist viewers is not to deal with this, but it's the basic question of how do I come out as an atheist to my family? Because they're all religious, they're all Christians. I'm the atheist. How do I let them know? And so this is a similar thing to that. I think that it just, us not knowing exactly the dynamics of your relationships with your family and how close or estranged you might be, they're all. We could maybe at best give some general suggestions, but ultimately it's just going to come down to you're there, knowing how hot or cold the water is, and we can't really, beyond that. I wish there was a one-size-fits-all solution to breaking through, but there's not.
No, that's all right. Thanks for thoughts. Give me stuff to think about.
Sure. Good luck. Yeah.
Yeah. And hey, if you find a way, or if you find out what works for you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it for the other people who are in those situations.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But thanks a lot for calling, Phillip. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for taking my call.
All right. Bye-bye. As a reminder, once the show's over, we get together and go to Threadgill's for dinner. There's the address.
For noms.
Can't tell you what to do with that information. Couldn't ask you to come down and join us or anything, but we'll be there.
Yeah. So if you did that, it would be just you doing it of your own accord.
Who knows?
Yes.
Anyway, Kenny in Elk Grove, how are you?
Hi, Matt. First, the only time I got to talk to you was way back on episode 721, and you and that's just a gay show.
What's that?
You're cutting out.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had a pretty nice. Let me get off my. Okay, is this better?
So far.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm in my home office. Last time we had a bit of a problem with this.
Okay.
Oh, you're fine now.
Okay, good. Anyway, Beth was on your program. You guys were engaged, and I didn't know that's who that was, and I wasn't watching this on my screen, so I want to congratulate you on your marriage. It's a bit of a late congratulations, but I think that's great.
Thanks. You want to say thanks, honey? She's nodding and waving.
She's waving. I'm doing her crocheting.
Anyway, you and I discussed the authorship of Gospels. We had a bit of a tizzy, and you hung up on me. And I hadn't been able to get you on the phone since.
Okay, well, you got me today. I won't promise that I won't hang up.
I'm changing the subject today. I want to talk about science.
Okay.
Science.
So why would... all right, go ahead. I'm always curious when people call in to talk about science, because you do realize this is a public access TV show, and neither one of us are actually scientists, so it's kind of...
We guys do talk about creation, evolution, controversy a lot.
Well, only one of those two is science, but yes, we do talk about those.
Well,
anyway, what's your question?
Okay, well, basically, there's a scientist named Paul Ramdohr, German scientist, Ramdohr, and he was the chief mineralogist at the University of Heidelberg in Germany and head of the petrology department there.
Okay.
And he wrote the standard international work on the microscopic study of minerals called the ore minerals and their intergrowths. And he wrote this paper on radioactive fracturing. And it was later reviewed by Bob Gentry because he identified radioactive minerals being in the rock due to radio halos, and so he wanted Bob Gentry to look at his samples and read his paper and give his opinion. And so I talked to Bob Gentry on the phone in the 1990s when I was debating creation and evolution on the Prodigy Online service. I'm one of the reasons why they closed that service down, because of all the extensive writing we did on the bulletin boards there.
Well, that's a good feather in your cap.
The Atheist Evolutionists, we pretty much closed it down.
Oh, you did, huh?
Yeah. We wrote so much that they couldn't handle it, and they had to shut down.
Yeah, bandwidth was kind of a thing back then.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And anyway, this paper he wrote was put in English by Oak Ridge National Lab in 1965. And his specialty is microscopic studies, and he noticed this fracturing no one was commenting on because it's kind of odd. When radioactive elements decay in a rock, they exert an internal pressure that causes fracturing on the inside. When the mineral reaches a point of expansion, it can't handle it anymore. And where they expand, by prediction, is at grain boundaries and the let's see what's called that, grain boundaries and the cohesion.
Is this the C decay argument? Or a different thing?
No,
okay.
this is
No,
something
that's,
you have never
that's speed
heard
of light.
of.
I'm sorry. Okay. Keep
Well,
going.
I've heard of this halo stuff before, but I'm trying to figure out what you're getting to, and can we get to it quicker?
Okay, well, they predicted that that's where the fracturing should be, is the grain boundaries cohesion minimums. That's not where we find it. Instead, we find random isotropic fracturing indicative of accelerated pressure due to accelerated decay. So this is a fingerprint that these rocks are remnant of accelerated radioactive decay. The minerals, isotopes we're talking about in these minerals are thorium-232, uranium-238.
Yeah, okay, so what conclusion do you think all this supports?
Well, things aren't as old as radioactive decay indicates because it was accelerated in the past.
Okay, and why do you think? Why do you think that that's the case?
Because
I mean,
that's
because
the
you could
interpretation of Paul Ramdohr,
Okay.
Yes.
and there isn't any alternative since the paper was published.
Why do you think that the scientific community doesn't agree with you?
The scientific community hasn't given an opinion in 50 years on this. They don't have an alternative.
Well, I mean,
You don't think so?
Radiometric dating isn't tied to just one type of decay. There's a number of them, and they're also tested and confirmed by things other than radiometric dating. So there's this interdisciplinary process that confirms the reliability, which none of it's 100% reliable, but confirms the reliability of these things. And so I don't know, if this guy produced a paper that shows this is all unreliable, why hasn't this changed anything about the way we do science?
Well, he wanted the same thing when he wrote this paper because he reviewed prior literature that had the same photograph, same phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And they didn't answer his paper after he wrote it.
Well, have you spoken to geologists, physicists, other people in the proper scientific disciplines? Have you asked them these questions? I mean, why are you calling an atheist program? I mean, I understand it's an interesting. It's a topic that you think we'd be interested in, but again, our position is going to be, whatever it is that Paul Ramdohr has written and whatever conclusions he's reached, they do not appear to be conclusions that the scientific consensus, that the working professionals in the field, tend to agree with on the whole. And scientists can make mistakes. They can. Papers, even peer-reviewed papers, can be incorrect. And the best that you could say, I would think, about Ramdohr's conclusions would be that if they led to new approaches to this field of study, for example, if they added some meaningfully to either the the field of geology, or if they opened up new paths of inquiry that led to, if what he wrote had predictive power, like if his conclusions in his paper led to accurate predictions that other scientists could make in terms of what you would or would not be likely to find, then that would be one thing. But that I know of, being layman, his conclusions don't seem to be the ones that are held by scientific consensus.
More than that, I mean, they haven't demonstrated any predictive power such that they would be adopted. But even more than that, let's assume that you're completely right and that radiometric dating is inaccurate, which would be about the most we could say if that conclusion was correct, right?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. But I do have
Kenny, that was a yes/no, so I could ask this. If all we could really say is that it's unreliable, we haven't done anything, not one thing, to demonstrate that the dates are wrong or that your proposed dates are right. At most, you've just demonstrated that you've got an unreliable tape measure.
Well, to answer the question that was later asked by Martin sitting next to you there, James Fingebaum, University of Chicago physicist, doing a PhD dissertation on the hydrogen atom. This was given to him on the Prodigy Online service as part of my debate.
You're talking about a scientific paper from 60 years ago and an online discussion on a service that hasn't been active in 20. So
we're not exactly at the cutting edge of the field.
I don't know exactly what you're proposing or how you're what it is that you think you can demonstrate.
Well, these rocks are on every continent of the planet.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what?
And obviously, we had a accelerated radioactive decay event. I mean, how do you measure the accelerated radioactive decay of the potassium argon melt?
I just explained to you that at most what you're saying is that we do not have a reliable tape measure, and yet somehow you think that you are able to accurately measure absent a reliable tape measure. Because you're Kenny, because you're a young Earth creationist, correct?
Sure.
And so, despite the fact that young Earth creationism is, it's even disregarded by some of the most, ardent fundamentalists as nonsense that doesn't stand up to anything. You think that you're justified in your young Earth position because you found a paper that hasn't gained any scientific traction that seems to imply that some radiometric dating may not be accurate. And this is sufficient to justify young Earth creationism?
Yeah, see, this is the kind of thing that unfortunately we see coming from the creationist camp quite a lot, which is this cherry picking of data. You'll find a paper or a discussion or one particular scientist who published or wrote or said something sometimes decades in the past, as Ramdohr has done, and you'll say, here, this is it, and you'll wave that around as being the thing that settles the issue, when it's not. It's cherry picking of data, and there is, I think that if you look around to find, instead of finding that the scientific consensus has no alternatives to Ramdohr's conclusions or no other explanations for things, you may very well find that stuff is out there if you weren't just laser focused on the thing that seems to support the conclusion that you've already come to, which is that we have a young Earth.
This is exactly the sort of thing that happens when people say, oh, I'm going to go poke holes in evolution and that's going to prove creationism. No, it won't. No. It won't. I mean, you could find out tomorrow that everything we understand about evolutionary theory is wrong. Poke holes in all of it so that the whole thing crumbles. You haven't done anything to demonstrate the truth of creationism. And finding, even if this was a legitimate hole in radiometric dating processes, even poking that hole does not confirm your young Earth creationist hypothesis.
Anyway, maybe we should go.
Well, that's nice, but
I think it's great.
Yeah,
but
when a paper's out there for 50 years, it becomes science.
No.
Error, foul, wrong.
You have failed, and I'm kicking you back to remediate science 101.
Yes.
The length of time that an idea has been out there has no bearing on whether or not it's true, and especially when you're pointing to a paper that's been submitted and rejected, just because it hasn't been rejected. How much more can it be rejected?
Yeah.
I mean, should we wait another 50 years with it still not being accepted, and now it's really, really science? Come on now.
So you don't believe that there's a possibility that since about 1940s, and this paper was first published in Germany in the late 1950s, that maybe there was a little bias against papers against radioactive dating since it became the absolute dating method back then?
So basically, you took
Kenny.
Basically, you just took my response, which had nothing to do with whether or not there was bias or error or anything else, and turned it into an accusation that I don't accept your conspiracy theory that scientists are out to shut down proof of creationism.
Well, you've heard of. Let's see.
Weren't we just talking about conspiracy theory?
Yeah.
Weren't we just that?
Have you heard of Steve Austin of the Institute of Creation Research?
The only Steve Austin I know is a WWE guy. lives around here.
And the $6 million
Okay, well,
man.
Steve Austin's
true.
a well-known creationist. He's head of the geology department at ICR.
Okay.
That fine scientific
ICR, the people
let
who
me-
couldn't get accredited?
Well, hang on a minute. He's got a PhD from Penn State, and he wrote a paper that passed peer review
And what do...
3 times.
Okay.
But it was
The
never
paper...
published
Kenny?
because he was Steve Austin.
Whoa.
You want me to tell you what the paper was?
Oh,
Kenny,
we're back to this.
Kenny, you simultaneously just said that he was peer-reviewed 3 times but never published. How the hell does that happen?
Yeah.
Where did this
tell
peer
you how it
review...
happened.
Where does this peer review occur if it's not a published paper?
Well, if they told him that they would publish a paper and then change their mind later from an editor...
So
maybe-
it wasn't peer-reviewed.
Maybe because
then
it didn't
he was
withstand
sued.
peer review.
So any publisher can refuse to publish a paper,
Yes.
even
Yes.
if it passed
And if
peer
it doesn't
review.
get published, then it didn't get peer-reviewed.
Or it didn't withstand peer review.
Well-
No. It was peer reviewed 3 times, and they didn't publish it, and wrote him a letter saying, "We will never publish your paper."
Maybe
And the
because
reason
it's
they wouldn't
crap.
publish it
Maybe
was
because it
of
wasn't
Steve Austin.
scientifically sound. Maybe because when he submitted it for peer review, it got reviewed and it didn't withstand the peer review. That's
No,
how
it
peer
passed the
review
peer
works.
review.
That's how peer review
Kenny,
works.
I can go right or I
Peer
can
review
go.
is not peer review is not a rubber stamp of instantaneous approval.
Yeah, and it.
Peer review is review.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that your paper's worth a damn. And even if it receives good reviews and glowing stuff, doesn't mean it becomes instantly science. I could go write something right now and submit it for review and have it rejected over and over and over again. That doesn't mean there's a conspiracy against me or my idea, and it doesn't mean that my stuff becomes science. What's that?
Let me help you a little bit on this.
What?
This was a paper on geological, paleontological evidence in the Nautiloid Canyon adjacent to the Grand Canyon. The leading expert on those fossils in the world is Steve Austin. There's about 1 billion of these cigar-shaped Nautiloid fossils in that area.
Kenny, what's your point?
They're all orientated to one current direction in the red wall
Kenny.
limestone that covers all of North America.
Kenny.
It's evidence for a flood. That's why they didn't publish it.
Oh, right. Oh, I see. We're suppressing. Back to
Yes.
conspiracy theories again.
Thanks for calling,
There's
Kenny.
a mathematician that published in a journal for years
Hey,
and years and
hey,
years.
Kenny, there's
and
a-
they rejected his paper after they told him in letter they would publish it.
Yeah,
He
you-
sued them and got $30,000.
Yeah, and you know what? They're not always perfect. You know, there's a biologist that somebody sent me an email the other day about. They've had this idea that disproves Darwinian evolution with a hybridization theory that they just have had a really difficult time publishing too. And so I submitted to some actual biologist who said that the science in there was 50 to 60 years out of date and that it shouldn't have been published because it's nonsense. I'm sorry that your pet theories don't meet scientific scrutiny, but that doesn't mean that there's a conspiracy. The only conspiracy is to not allow junk science into science.
No, the National Science Foundation is just run by atheists. There's no conspiracy.
Well, see, it's not run by atheists. The elite of the elite among scientists tend to be non-religious because they've actually exercised their critical thinking skills to evaluate the claims of religion and decided that they don't withstand those. That, though, does not mean that they then have constructed conspiracy to keep down your religious views. Do you not understand what would happen within the scientific community if intelligent design or creationism could actually demonstrate the truth of what they would claim? I mean, you're talking about tons and tons of money, Nobel Prizes, Templeton Prizes. Where's the Templeton Prize for these guys, by the way? Templeton's already on your side. They're not even taken seriously by any science group, and they're handing money out left and right. And yet...
Well, what about the Templeton Prize to the physicists that discovered that there's an outside influence on the universe?
Yeah, I just said the Templeton Foundation is not considered a scientific organization. They have an agenda.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't hear it on the phone right.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for calling, Kenny.
I thought Eugenie Scott, executive director of the National Science Foundation, was an atheist.
Eugenie Scott is a non-believer.
But Kenneth Miller,
an
who is
atheist.
one of the world's leading evolutionary biologists,
Is a Catholic.
Is a believer. So religious belief or bias has no bearing on what it is that a working scientist discovers about science.
But anyway, none of this makes
Or
any difference.
should not have a bearing.
None of this makes any difference. You're a young Earth creationist, and you are convinced that there's some conspiracy to keep out the evidence supporting young Earth creationism. I'm not. I don't know what else we can say.
So,
Well, if you're going to say on your program that creationists publish in their own literature because they can't publish in the scientific literature,
Yeah.
and they turn around when there's evidence given that they're not allowed to.
No.
well,
No.
again, that's false. That's
See-
that's the sob story that they try to sell the gullible public.
Yeah, when you go out and create your own, when
Ramdohr's
you,
not even a creationist, and
Kenny-
there's nothing wrong with his paper.
Kenny, when you go out and create your own journals because you can't get into reputable ones, that tells us a lot about what you're proposing.
Yeah.
Now, you can spin that as a conspiracy that all the reputable scientists and all the reputable scientific journals have somehow gotten together and decided, no. All these people who are offering what some people would call junk scientists or junk science, we're going to shut them down. And it's just nonsense.
And this is a common refrain, right? And the whole conspiracy thing, it was the central theme of that stupid movie Expelled. It was it's the central theme among conspiracy theorists in other areas, people who believe in the Illuminati and rubbish like this. This whole idea that, the mainstream, they actually do know the truth, but because some agenda that they have to stay in power or whatever it is, they have to suppress the truth. So whenever some bold, truth-seeking, real scientist comes along and presents the evidence for, God or young Earth or a flood or what have you, it's immediately suppressed because we cannot, it's utter rubbish, but of course it plays to people who have, spent their lives not learning how to think critically and watching things like X-Files, and it's a really great emotional appeal because suddenly, you can sell yourself as being the underdog or the victim of the bullies, and but it's all rubbish, really. The simple fact is that if there were evidence for a young Earth that was solid, anybody could present it, the scientific community would check it out. Scientists change their minds about things all the time. We're constantly changing our minds about what we think we know about the universe. Recently it was discovered that the universe expanding at a much, not only at a much faster rate than we originally thought, but it's actually accelerating. That's interesting. Don't really know the cause of that. Science is all about learning new and amazing and bizarre and strange things. They love that. They're not like, we found a new and amazing and bizarre and strange thing. Let's pretend it doesn't exist because we're really comfortable here.
Yeah,
That's just not how they work.
The age of the universe, by the way, is not contingent on the radiometric dating that you're talking about. Those things are in the timescales related to Earth. The fact that the universe is 13.7 billion years old and that we can get it down to a really fairly precise number. You're suggesting that it's 6,000 to 10,000 years old. There's several orders of magnitude difference between those two. It's young Earth, a young universe is one of the most laughably ridiculous concepts in the face of the actual evidence that we have, which is why even Answers in Genesis, who are bizarrely goofy in their creationist beliefs, don't advocate for it.
So, anyway.
But thanks, Kenny.
Yeah, we're going to have to move on now, but thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Got it.
Well, I think he took that very well.
Well, that's all right. So, is it Allie in Brockton?
Yes, it is.
Hey, how you doing?
Thanks for waiting.
Yeah, sorry, thanks for being patient.
No, thank you. I'm actually calling in today to hopefully bring some light on plight of a friend of mine. His name is Abdulaziz Mohammed Albaz.
Yes.
And we run an atheist video blog panel show in Arabic. Where we kind of take on Islam and pretty much do the same thing that you do, but pertaining to Islam. And basically, Abdulaziz has been jailed in Kuwait for blasphemy ever since. He's been in jail since December 31st, I believe.
Wow, okay.
And he faces up to 5 years in prison for mild things said on the show and some things that he said on his own blog. And basically, we're trying to shed some light on his plight. We think that the country of Kuwait can be pressured with enough noise into letting him know. The emir, about 6 months ago, vetoed a bill from Parliament that would have upped the penalty to death for blasphemy. And so we think that they can be pressured into letting him go.
Ali?
Yes.
Unfortunately, what I think we're moving towards, we can't actually do on the show. So I know Tracy's going to do something for the blog. Why don't you send me an email afterwards, and I'll talk to you about what we can do.
Yeah, there's a certain degree of advocacy that's like not allowed on live on basically the rules on Channel Austin, but I do that, and then we'll just let everyone know, because we always post to the blog post show, and but we definitely want to shine some more light on this, because this is like it's absolutely insane to me that in the 21st century you can be imprisoned for in offending imaginary beings. We need to move beyond that. Just a couple of questions now. Now, this young man, I mean, he's a Kuwaiti, right? I mean, he's a citizen of...
He's actually an Egyptian living in Kuwait.
Okay, so it's not like they'd be terribly sympathetic to... but, I mean, what sort of, like, what we'd like to know when you write us and when you give us the information is just what kind of, like, political pressure, like, talking to, people in Washington about, acting on this. We'd like to know some more about, what can be done along those lines.
Absolutely, absolutely, and obviously, I just also wanted to say that this is not a one-off case. There's a trend in the Middle East as of now of rounding up atheists for blasphemy and other minor imaginary crimes, as we would call them here as atheists.
Yeah.
Pretty much everywhere else.
And there are plenty of people in America who would like that to be the law here.
Facing even harsher penalties in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's that old bumper sticker that I like, that blasphemy is a victimless crime, and it turns out that blasphemy accusations, though, are not
victimless. No.
And so send me an email. We'll see what we can do, but we can't do what I think we're wanting to do.
At least not like right here on the program.
Fortunately, we have other programs and other outlets.
Yes, we do. There's been some discussion lately of some people have been linking to, there's an article going around, I have yet to read it, I really want to, whether or not the internet will be this thing that finally kills off religion. Will religion survive the internet? Because it is this thing that has made it possible for, particularly in countries where, you keep your mouth shut or you die, for non-believers to have a voice. And the thing about atheists is, we're opinionated assholes a lot of the times, and we're proud of that. That's a feature, not a bug. And we come out and speak our minds, and we've really got a lot of this comfortable religious establishment, hiding under the blankets. And will religion survive the internet, and how long? That's an interesting question.
Aside from all that, I also want to thank you guys. I personally, when I first became an atheist, watched your show a lot, and your show is one of the reasons that I decided to do something about it. And I think that you're right. The internet is going to have a huge effect. It already is. We're not the only ones that have noticed. Like I've said, every day there are now articles from sheikhs and religious authorities asking to round up the atheists. They're afraid that we're undermining Islam in general.
And they're right.
They're coming after us, but we're people like Aziz who know full well that things can happen to them. They don't care. They're staying strong, and they're speaking out. So I think that you're absolutely right about that.
Cool. Well, thanks for the kind words. Definitely hit us up in email. We'll see what we can do that we can't do here.
Yeah, we'll get cooking on the blog about this.
I will. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for writing.
So it's I think I can explain the potential problem here, just for clarity, so that people understand it. I don't think I'm prohibited from doing that. There are specific rules. We do the show from the Public Access Studio in Austin, Texas. That may not always be the case, and the rules have changed with regard to what can and can't be said. And
drastically, actually.
One of the things that we used to have an exemption from is this idea about calls to action. We can't direct people to sell things or buy things or do things. We can't suggest we can't even suggest that they come down and have dinner. And so if we were to, let's say, I don't know, let me come up with a really good hypothetical. If we were to suggest that people write letters on behalf of a social political issue or things like that, those would be kind of calls to actions, which we can't really do here, no matter how much we might think it's a really good idea. And so those are just the limitations, and we've got to kind of live with them while we're here. Yeah. That may change when we start doing some shows from the building.
Yes, definitely.
But anyway,
which will be great, which will be very sweet when we get that rolling.
Cool. We got Dan in New York, New York. How are you?
Hey, what's up?
Well, good.
Not much. What's up with you?
Yeah, I'm just.
How cold is it?
It's pretty cold up here. It's been for the past several weeks. But yeah, I emailed you guys something about recent arguments from contingency, and I was wondering what you thought about those. I'm not sure if you got the email.
Oh, we probably got it. It's whether or not we've actually had time to read it and go through it is another story.
Sorry. I mean, we do try to read all these things, but it's the volume.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Turi and this guy Rasmussen and Weaver in the Northeast here, they've come up with this recent set of arguments about possibility. And they've argued that from the premise that you have, every state of affairs or every fact is possibly caused, you can get that everything is actually caused. Right?
Yeah, that's part of modal logic. And the foundation of it is an axiom called S5, which I reject. So modal logic arguments aren't going to carry any weight with me. Alvin Plantinga's modal logic version of the ontological, I think, suffers from the exact same problems. And spending a lot of time constructing an argument about what is possibly true or what is absolutely true in some possible world type things, they really don't carry any weight for me. Maybe I am insufficiently versed in the reality of the universe, but to me, possible doesn't tell me anything about how likely something is to be true, the fact that it may or may not be possible.
I mean,
just to be clear, you're saying you don't really like any modal argument, because this one doesn't rely on the S5 axiom.
They don't all rely on S5. It's S5 that I reject.
Right, okay, so this one doesn't rely on the S5 axiom.
So then it can't ever get to anything other than something is possible and therefore it's possible.
No, this one infers the actuality of a fact about causation from the possibility of a certain fact about whether something was caused.
Well, how does it do that?
Okay, go for it.
Right. So this is Appendix 3 on Weaver's paper. I'm not sure. Like, you can see it later, but so the domain here is this set of states of affairs, right? And so the premise is, for every state of affairs, it's such that it could be possibly caused, right? Could be the case that the state of affairs was caused, right? So now consider that, for every state of affairs, it's not possible that that state of affairs obtains, and it wasn't caused, and it wasn't, part of a, complex state of affairs which was itself caused, and it was caused, right? Clearly that's contradictory. It can't be such that it wasn't caused.
Yeah, I can't possibly follow all the you-knows and possible and not possible without having it written out.
Right. So, I mean, you can check out the email, but...
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
And send it again if you want to, if you don't think it went through.
Yeah, just to make sure.
You can send it to not just TV@, but you can send it to President@.
Okay. But, so, have you heard of Church and Fitch?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, they're two logicians from the 50s or so. And they had this argument that if some fact or all facts are possibly known, then they're actually known, right? And so that proof is sort of easier to follow, but it still you might want to still write it out. So I don't know. Should I just resend the email and then call again next week, or like?
Well, you should resend the email, and then once one of us reads it and actually responds to it, we can do it that way. But just calling in next week may not guarantee that anybody's actually read it. But yeah, I'd send that in and look it over. I just I worry that you may be disappointed in my actual response because, once again, when you say things like, if something is possibly known, then it's actually known, I just reject that out of hand.
Okay.
Because it's possible, and I think we can demonstrate why that's false. It is possible to know the mass of a star in the Andromeda galaxy that we have not yet discovered. And if that's the case, and there are no actual other minds, which there's no requirement that there be other minds to actually do that, until such time as we've actually discovered it and acquire that information, then it is false to say that it is actually known. And I think that is a defeater for those types of arguments.
Right, okay. All right, so thanks. I'll just
Sure.
Yeah.
try to send the email.
Yep. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, take care, Dan. Appreciate it.
See.
So we got Jonathan in Mesa, Arizona.
Hey, Matt, how are you and Martin doing?
Just fine. Thanks.
Martin's just fine, and I'm pretty good.
Yes.
You're pretty good, okay.
You
It's
never
very
know.
orange.
Orange. Martin, I noticed you switched from Oreos to Girl Scout cookies.
Yes, I did. I do all of these evil cookie brands that the fundamentalists hate.
Yeah, we should have a chart of evil cookies that fundamentalists hate.
Yeah, just.
Are secular cookies any better?
Well, those weren't bad. For peanut butter sandwich cookies, you can't really mess those up.
I've been to a lot of church socials with homemade cookies, and they're really, really good. So I'm not going to go out on a limb and say secular cookies are necessarily better, but I'm pretty sure that the cookies that they brought to church don't actually believe in God, so we could maybe claim them.
Yeah.
Implicit atheist cookies?
Yes, even if they are heavenly.
What do you got for us?
I had a question. I've had this discussion with a couple different people, and I really haven't been able to get a grasp on it. As far as like the origin of the universe, what can you tell me, as the definition of this singularity? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, we know what you're talking about. You're talking to the wrong people to be giving scientific definitions. And when we're talking about universal origins, it's something that I don't know that we, in general, have a good enough understanding of, let alone Martin and I on the show. I mean, there's a physicist sitting in the room right now who might hem and haw about the precise definition of the singularity, I would think. But basically, if my understanding is correct, in a nutshell, it's the point at which our mathematical understanding of the universe breaks down. Or it's actually a point just beyond where it breaks down, I would say. Mm-hmm. And I'm not getting a nod, so I could be wrong.
Okay. Maybe that's why I've never come to any kind of conclusion, because it seems like there's so many different views on it.
Yeah, I mean, the math, the predictive math from the basics of Big Bang cosmology made predictions that have been confirmed by observations of cosmic microwave background radiation. And so what we've done, and I say we in the sense that I'm a part of the species that has done this, because I couldn't, is devised a model that works as the best description of all the known facts about the universe. But there's a lot of things left to be resolved. So while I'm happy to say that as far as I'm aware, the Big Bang model is the most accurate, most reliable model of the early origins of the universe that we have, I'm not going to be trying to define singularity or defending physics and cosmology that I don't personally comprehend.
You want to talk to guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson about stuff like that.
And Lawrence Krauss and Vic Stinger. And
Actually, I'm glad. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No, you're fine.
Oh, okay. Bringing up Lawrence Krauss, I saw an episode of this series called How the Universe Works, and it was with him and I might say his name wrong, Michio Kaku, I think.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Krauss said was that when he mentioned the singularity is that it was an infinitesimally dense, infinitesimally hot piece of matter that exploded the universe into existence. And when I heard this, the thing that seemed that it was contradicting to me was general relativity, in the sense that
space, time, and energy all came into being at the exact same moment and simultaneously. And it seems to me if general relativity is true, and so far I haven't heard anyone say it's not, that this speck of matter couldn't have existed before the universe came into being. So that kind of seems contradictory, doesn't it?
Well, there's also the before the universe being, that may not be a coherent concept because of the time issue. But, if you actually Google Lawrence Krauss's talk online called A Universe from Nothing. He gave it, I think, in 2009 in California at an atheist convention. And he also did it again at the Imagine No Religion conference in Kamloops, British Columbia, with some revisions and updates. And he talks about the inherent unstableness of nothing. And I'm going to put that in quotes, even though Lawrence doesn't think I should.
Right.
Because,
and it's a book now, too.
Yeah. And it's also a book, but there's a lot of discussions about it. But the big thing is, let's say that you don't understand it and I don't understand it. Where does that get us? I mean, does it change any? Does it change anything about whether or not there's a good reason to, example, believe that a God existed? Because even if we are wrong about our current understandings of the origin of the universe, as I pointed out earlier, poking holes in evolution doesn't get you to creationism. Poking holes in radiometric dating doesn't get you to a young Earth, and poking holes in modern cosmology doesn't get you to a God. Those things actually have to be. Have evidence provided for on their own. So
and that's kind of a false dichotomy, isn't it?
Yeah, worst case, it would just be we're back to we don't know.
Right. This brings up a point about the way in which the science rejecting Christians, and I'm not certainly they're not all under that umbrella, but the people who support creationism and reject evolution and Big Bang cosmology and old universe and all the rest of it, is because they don't like this notion of not knowing things, and they look at the fact that science hasn't got all the answers as being a problem for science, and whereas they can just wave their holy book around and say, "Haha, but I do have all the answers." When Russell and Matt had their devoted an entire episode to talking to that glorious clown Ray Comfort. His thing, one statement that he made was that, when it comes to why there's a universe or what have you, you guys don't have an answer, and I have an answer. And that seemed to him to be a plus in his favor. And what I didn't understand is, he had an answer in the same way that I might have an answer if I were to just attribute anything that I didn't understand to the actions of the Great Pumpkin, right? It's
actually more than that.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I'm going to have to let you go because there's one more call I want to get to before the show's over with. But thanks so much for calling.
Hey, thanks for taking me, guys.
Sure. Yeah. It's actually more than that. I just had a podcast debate on a Christian podcast the other day against John Ferrer, who I debated previously with JT. We did a team debate.
Okay.
And one of the things that John kept saying over and over again was that there's something that it's not okay to not know. I mean, he's not comfortable with I don't know as an answer, and so when naturalistic explanations fail, he is somehow justified in kind of reaching out to supernatural explanations. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to explain that no, when you get to the point where you don't know, you just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're actually going to have time for this, but Spence, are you there?
Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, we've got like 3 minutes, I think. I apologize that we didn't get... All right.
Whatever.
That's outstanding. So the note here, just so you know, because I knew we weren't going to actually get time to do this by the time I saw it, it was presuppositional apologetics. If God could reveal truth to us in a way we could understand, could we trust it? I want to get the host to admit there's a God. And so while that has nothing to do with what the guy actually screamed in the phone, if God could reveal truth to us in a way we could understand it, could we trust it? Now, this kind of goes to the question that I've been asked over and over again is, what would it take for you to believe?
Right.
And I used to give answers like, writing in the sky that was simultaneously understandable, comprehensible to people of different languages and stuff like that. But I realized very quickly that, or maybe a little slowly, that this would be a very arrogant position to hold, that I am sufficiently knowledgeable that I have some way to detect what would actually qualify as a God from what is just amazingly super powerful alien technology type thing.
Sure.
There's, the sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Right.
It would be arrogant of me to presume that I could not be fooled by something godlike into thinking that it was actually a god.
Yeah.
But the answer that I gave was, if there is a god, by definition, or by the common definition of what a god is and capable of, and any god worth the title would definitely know what it would take to convince me and would be capable of doing so. Now, we can kind of pick nits about, yes, you're still using your brain and your senses and all these other things, but I'm saying that if there is a God, that God should be able to convince me.
An all-knowing being would know what it would take.
Yeah, I mean,
and so it's entirely then incumbent upon him to provide that information if he chooses.
And if I was fooled, given those criteria, then whatever I was fooled by is sufficiently godlike to probably qualify as a god anyway.
Yeah.
But
here's the thing. Let's say amazingly advanced aliens land on Earth. Hi, we're aliens, and we're amazingly advanced. And they have technology beyond our wildest dreams. They can even revive the dead. They can resurrect dead people. They can make us immortal. They can cure all disease. They can do anything. Would it be appropriate for us to worship them? Are they gods?
Well, I wouldn't worship anything, including
but I mean, what's the difference?
An actual god.
I was thinking about that. Like, what's the difference between a god and just some amazingly advanced being that can just do things that to you are magical?
Yeah, it's one thing to recognize it.
Other than how you choose to feel about them, right? So,
yeah, this idea of worship is one that people ask me what it would take. Somebody asked me on the show, what would it take to make you a Christian again? And I gave the answer that I pretty much just gave. And actually that was false now that I think about it, because that would be sufficient for me to believe that the Christian God is real. That's not enough to actually make me a Christian again. It would take considerably more than that to convince me that following that God or revering that God is justified. And this idea of worship is one that I kind of reject out of hand. Any God worthy of worship doesn't need it or want it.
Yeah.
And the ones that do aren't. And so
was it Hitchens who compared heaven to just like living in North Korea, where all you do all day is praise the dear leader? It's like, that's no fun. Yeah.
So we got like less than a minute left, which is why I don't want to jump in on any calls. But I will say this, John in Houston, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I apologize that we have less than a minute left. You might want to call back next week. But your question about morality, I just finished giving a talk in San Diego on the superiority of secular morality. There's an older version of that talk that's actually available online, along with some other stuff. Or you can call back next week, and if I'm here, we can talk about it more then.
Okay, awesome. We'll check that out.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for waiting.
Thanks to all the people who make the show happy. Thank you, Martin, for showing up.
I'm happy to be back. Thanks to our audience.
Bringing cookies.
You guys rock.
Woo.
Yes.
And we're going to head to dinner. You can do whatever you want.
Down. Yes. Girl Scouts. We love